And once more, dear brothers and sisters, Sunday night, 8 o'clock on social media, let us go into the breach. So we got a lot going on. All right. This is not going to be a conversation where we're going to be talking about 10 different things. Okay. Our primary focus tonight is going to be talking about what's going to happen to us, not what might happen to us, what's going to happen to us if Joe Biden gets elected. Because as Joe and I keep saying all the time, Joe Biden, if he gets elected president, is not going to be president of the United States. Okay, so people could say, well, he's not a Marxist. Well, number one, he talks like one, and we're going to get into the debate. Okay, and number two, he's being controlled by Marxists because the Democrat Party and Marxists are interchangeable right now. So what's going to come from that? Who do Marxists hate more than anybody else? Christians generally, and Catholics in particular. And that's who they're going to come for. And we're going to break that down from a number of very good sources. Now, we feel like we want to talk about that, but first we're going to talk about, from a few different angles, the debate. Okay, the debate. It's all about the debate, right? That's all you're hearing about this week. And the left thinks they're cute and all this, but Resinello's got a couple good points he wants to make about that. And then we're going to talk about this whole lie. See, the media lies. They keep lying that Trump he didn't condemn white supremacy or white supremacists in Charlottesville, and he didn't condemn the neo-Nazis. He didn't do that. Number one, he did, and number two, one of the most prominent neo-Nazis in America is supporting is it Harris Biden or Biden Harris? I'm unsure. It's Barack Obama. Biden Harris, or Harris Biden. It won't matter. But a neo-Nazi, for reasons that Joe and I have said on this show, okay, is supporting the Democrat ticket. So those are our three overall conversations we're going to have, and we're going to start with the debate. But remember, first and foremost, please follow us on Facebook, like our page, share it with your friends, and please on YouTube. We're really trying to build up our audience on YouTube. So when you get an opportunity, please, especially if you're watching right now on YouTube, hit like on the video and hit the little subscribe button. That will help us. We're building it up slowly, incrementally. We could use like a big push. But either way, we want to thank you for all your support up till this point. And remember, check out the Crusade channel, Mike Church's radio station. Joe and I are on there on Mondays later in the day. We have a 3-hour radio show over there. You could do a free subscription for 30 days, trial subscription for 30 days.
Worth it to check it out.
Definitely worth it. You know, we're there. Mike Church is there. Rick Barrett, Aaron Barker, David Simpson, brother Andre Marie. It's good radio. It's really good radio. So when you're driving in your car, you pop on the Crusade channel as a subscriber. You can listen to it for hours. It's continual. They're always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. So yeah, let's get into this debate. I, for one, I think my initial reaction was I was a little bit disappointed, but then I have to remember my own advice. Forget about what I think. Watch what the left does. And that's what we're going to get into. And a few more things. So where are we going, Joe?
So, like I said, we're going to start off with the debate conversation before we get into the other topics that Joe discussed. An interesting commentary was from Daniel Turner. He writes in the Federalist, and I want to just share some of his ideas, and I think it'll make for an interesting conversation. This is what Turner had to say. I'm not the slightest bit surprised at how the debate unfolded. The candidates were a reflection of us. I'm angry. I'm tired of being lied about. I'm tired of baseless and vague accusations of you're a racist and you don't care about people. And this is the important part. He says, I think the other side is weak, riding the wave of the mob like Robespierre, only to inevitably be destroyed by it. I think they have a nefarious, un-American agenda, and they've sacrificed the truth of our culture to try to improve their chances at winning. The Trump debate was us. And if you don't like what you see in the mirror, don't blame Trump or the vice president. Blame America.
Yep.
Blame me. Blame yourself.
Yep.
He's spot on. This
really
is where the country is right now. That debate, if you ask me, is an analogy of America. How it was a food fight.
Well, and the thing is, too, the more I kept thinking in my mind, come on, man, I know I interrupt people. All right, poor Joe, I interrupt him all the time, but Joe's my friend. He's not my enemy in any way, shape, or form. So Trump was was interrupting Biden a lot. But then I realized he wasn't interrupting Biden. He was interrupting Chris Wallace. And I've given much credit over the years to Chris Wallace. And now I found that that credit was not well spent on him because he just showed himself to be a partisan hack. Trump had no choice. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because Joe brings up that this is reflective of what we're going through in America and blaming us. I do the same thing as Trump. Because if I'm trying to have a conversation with somebody and they want to lie, I'm sorry, Biden was putting across lies. Trump needed to rebut those lies. But then there's a third party, the press, that comes in and interrupts me and tells me I can't correct him. Well, wait a minute, man. What's going on here? The guy says that I support white supremacy. I got something to say about that. Now, to me, is that not a legitimate point? And Chris Wallace, well, Mr. President, you agreed to the rules. You agreed to the rules. Your people agreed to and you know what? He just kept talking and talking. I've never seen anything like that. Candy Crowley, on her worst day, was not as bad as Chris Wallace was.
It didn't shock me. I expected that. Wallace hates Trump because he says the press is the enemy of the people, and Chris Wallace thinks he is Walter Cronkite. I mean, let's face it. Journalism is dead in America. Completely.
I thought it maybe wasn't completely. Chris Wallace showed me. It's completely.
He, in his mind, thinks he is the guy out there. I know. I've seen him in interactions with Trump. It's very obvious he despises him. And I absolutely expected that type of behavior. I really did.
But Joe, if you despise the guy, okay, if you despise him, then okay, you don't like him, you don't like him. But then don't call yourself an objective journalist. Well, that's our problem with them.
Sin blinds people. They're all blind. They have a virus of the mind. This is Trump derangement syndrome. It doesn't matter how smart you are. They have derangement syndrome. The smartest of them have slit their own throats. That's why they overplayed their hand. If you ask me, he hurt his career. Chris Wallace, if he thought he was a serious journalist, even objective people saw that he wasn't objective in the debate. He hurt his career and he hurt Fox's credibility. And I'll give you a perfect example. I will never watch Fox again. I have two news outlets, C-SPAN, America, One America Network.
Yeah, One America News.
I look at the Federalist. That's it.
Right.
I am not looking anymore at Fox. And that's just me. And I'm sure other people felt the same way. Wallace tarnished the brand. If you're going to make yourself out to be, I'm a real journalist and I'm on a neutral station, and we're going to get into that a little bit deeper in this conversation, he ruined himself. He should have, frankly, if you really felt that way and he was honest, this just shows you how dishonest he is with himself. He should have said, I don't want to be a moderator. He's wealthy. He doesn't have to be. He doesn't have to do that.
He was there
just said, I'm going to pass. He's basically, again, like the rest of them, Trump derangement syndrome. He has a virus of the mind. And frankly, it showed, Chris. It showed.
And it left Trump with no choice. Before we continue, let's just give a couple shout outs because we're probably not going to be able to do this in a couple minutes because there's so many people in the comment box. G-Tam is with us. Dan, Anthony. We got Barbara. Hi, Barbara. Ann, Daniel, Sandra. Hey, Sandra. Michael says, love you guys. We love you, Michael. Thank you. Pam's with us. And yeah, and then we got about 60 or so watching right now. And that was the frustration. That's why when I read that article you sent me, I said, that's exactly right. I re-examined my position on Trump because initially I thought that maybe he was interrupting and he was kind of going over the top. Then I realized, you know what? He's got no choice. He's got to do that. If he doesn't do that, many of Biden's, let's say, losing moments in the debate, he would not have been forced to do. Like when Trump was pressing him, what was Biden's best? I'm the Democrat Party. You see, like you said about Chris Wallace.
Here's the thing: that was a mistake to say.
Oh, it's a horrible thing to say.
My point is the strategy next time, because he will recalibrate. Is okay. Let him talk, and you'll slit your own throat. You see, I understand there comes a time, because, by the way, for people who thought Trump behaved poorly, let's dial it back when Biden debated Ryan when he was the vice president. He behaved so badly. in that debate.
Mm-hmm.
He was a bully on steroids on that debate. I laughed to myself because he then got bullied in this debate. In that debate, watch it. Go on YouTube. That is how Biden behaves. Look at his career. Anyway,
you know who really handed him his ass, though, in debate was Sarah Palin. Sarah Palin crushed him in the debate, and he really couldn't do anything because she's a woman.
You see, he had to. That was a strategy, because basically all you have to say, maybe next time he recalibrates and just lets him talk. Because Biden, and we're going to talk a little bit, he made some very, very serious flaws. He distanced himself from his party.
Good.
But that's a mistake. That alienates the Sanders voting bloc. And if that doesn't mean that they're going to vote for Trump, they may not show up.
Right.
He basically lied, and everyone knows that there is a Biden-Harris pact. It's 110 pages. Google it. It comes up on them.
Biden-Sanders.
He said Biden-Sanders.
He denied that.
Which is basically...
He goes, there's no... Yes, sir. What are you talking about? It's out there.
And I mean, you don't even have to dig far.
We covered it, 3 weeks in a row on this show?
Detail.
Okay, so it's out there. It's in the public. What do you mean it doesn't exist? And again, Chris Wallace shut down President Trump when he was trying to question Biden on this, because that is a damning document that he signed.
Well, that's why he shut him down.
Okay, it's his Faustian bargain to become president of the United States after 47 years of trying. Okay, that document shuts him down. That tells moderate and independent Americans and Democrats who are conservative, I'm not voting for that. And what did Wallace allow Biden to do? Worm right out of that without even having to address it. And the only time, like you said, that he did was to say, I never signed any such, I'm the Democrat Party.
Biden would always say, when he would pull something like that, because that is a stone cold lie. Look it up. He would say, you're lying. No, Joe, I'm not. Well, anyway, here's the thing. The problem is this. There's too many people that live on the surface. Let's be honest with you. I've said this time and time again. People would vote for Democrats and people would vote for Republicans if it was grimace voting going against the Hamburglar. 40% of the country would still vote. This is where we are as Americans. It's pathetic. And Biden knows this, by the way, and he laughs at you. He laughs at you because he knows that his son did what he did. He knows that there was a pact, because it is. Look it up and read it. He knows it. He knows that the Green New Deal is economically unfeasible. He knows that the election, the voting by mail, is dangerous, and that basically is going to cause Americans to question the integrity of the election, no matter who wins, and they don't care. He knows all of this, and then he just says, you're a liar. No, Joe. No, he's not. On that, net, and we're going to talk about this, if you peel away all the crap, Trump won the debate. Trump won the debate, and I'm going to tell you why he won the debate. I'm going to tell you 3 reasons why he won the debate. Rasmussen and IBD. Those polls stink, but they're the best of the stinky polls. Trump went up. Look them up. He went up after the debate. That's number 1. Number 2, Telemundo, which should put fear into the hearts of the Democratic Party. 66% of the Telemundo audience, by the way, Telemundo is not exactly a Republican bastion of fans, said that Trump won the debate. Trump is winning in Florida, where Hillary, amongst Latinos, Hillary beat Trump by 26 points.
Not this time around.
Right now, Trump is up 50 to 46 on Biden, and that is an important swing state. No president in modern history has ever lost Florida and Ohio and won the election. Ever. And that is a huge metric that matters, what I just said. So ultimately, based upon some of those factors, Trump won the debate. And net, like I said, Biden, this is what Biden, he showed to be, I got to give credit where credit's due. He didn't fold. They painted him out to be a man who was living in the basement. He stood his ground. I give you credit on that, in fairness. But here's the thing. To win a debate, you have to be aggressive. Trump will not be outdone by Joe Biden. He wasn't outdone by him in the first debate, and I got news for you. If you're expecting that in the next two, you're going to be sadly mistaken.
Well, that'll be the last part of this segment when we talk about, is there actually going to be another two? And like I said, when you say Trump won the debate, that's an opinion. Joe's got an opinion. I got an opinion. We think Trump won the debate, but our opinion doesn't really matter. Again, what the left's reaction to the debate is what you have to watch. Now, we'll get into that in a second. I just want to address the comment box. We are being listened to right now in Victoria, Australia.
Oh, very
Now,
nice.
that's a first. Thank you, Ron. He says, good day from Victoria, and he goes on to talk about his Marxist-controlled state. Our premier is a Marxist. You don't want America to live under this type of leadership. Thank you, Ron, and amen. This is what we're trying. That's why we're here. Don, hey, Don, what's happening? Is Biden's a swamp creature? Absolutely. Now, this is the one I want to address. Trevor, please, we love you. Listen, Trevor, we're beyond that. This is just political theater. Trump is not our savior. Vote locally, act locally. We will, and we promote that. We should be acting locally. The problem is, if these Marxists get in, you're not going to be able to act locally. And what's the perfect example of that we gave last week? They want to have, if they get in, this is just an example, Trevor, okay? Because in our hearts, we agree with you, by the way, our friends. But if they get in, and they've said this, that they want to change, or they're going to have the federal government override local zoning laws in the suburbs where they've zoned for single-family houses to build apartment buildings and multifamily units for Section 8 housing over the will of the people that live in those towns. That's just one example, and that's kind of even a tame one, all right? But that's just one example. We agree with you. Vote locally, act locally is what we should all be doing, okay? But we still have to vote against what they're going to be bringing to the table if they do, in fact, get elected. Yeah, so, Trevor, we just wanted to mention that. Trevor says they'll steal the election. We hope not. Anyway. Oh, and Connie's with us. Hi, Connie.
Hey,
so, yeah. So, Joe mentioned Telemundo. All right. Let's get into this a little bit, if you don't mind, about Chris Wallace. Okay. If you doubt for a second, and you're going to get the Joe and Joe take on this. Okay. If you doubt for a second that these dumb questions that Wallace was asking, and you could watch the debate again, he asked nothing like these questions to Joe Biden. You tell me what you think. You tell us what you think. Let's start, Joe, with number one. Now, by the way, this comes from an article in The Federalist by Jordan Davidson. He says, Chris Wallace has received negative marks for his constant interruptions of President Donald Trump and for his poor time management. But the worst thing about his moderation of the first presidential debate on Tuesday were the questions he asked. So let's start with the first one. If we have time, we'll go through them all, but we just want to give you the doozies, okay? What's radical about racial sensitivity training? Are they not watching The Front Line with Joe and Joe? They should be. We're not talking about being racially sensitive. Joe and I are racially sensitive. You want to know why? We're married to black women. We're not talking about that. But again, we're not addressing the question. We're addressing necessarily the stupidity of the question or the bias that's implicit in the question itself as it pertains to Chris Wallace, who's asking the question. Chris Wallace knows that we're not talking about racial sensitivity training. He knows we're talking about critical race theory, which is leftist racism. Am I wrong here?
Well, like I said, he lives in that world. He lives in that politically correct circle. Wallace is an elitist, and that is basically he has that badge, and he basically is in that club, and he probably helps craft the what's it called, the HR critical race theory garbage that they shove down your throat in the corporation.
That's what I'm saying. He has to know the difference.
Well, he has to play along. He has to, or he won't have that job.
Well, then why is he at Fox? Because the so-called conservative.
Fox is garbage too. It's garbage. All of them are garbage. Every single one of them. Journalism is dead in America. Only, to be honest with you, internet access journalism, or basically low-end, non-sponsored, anything mainstream journal, it's dead. Just like the movies. Hollywood's dead too. Mm-hmm. All the movies they make are crap. It's crap. The only movies that are good are independent movies.
Mhm.
It's the same thing with journalism.
Right.
They all are bought. They're all bought and sold by whoever basically runs the editing board and the producers. I mean, it's crap.
Mhm.
And they tell you what to say and they tell you what not to say. That's why stuff like this, what we're doing, like on a very low end, is reporting in many respects.
Right.
But like outside of that, like Mike Church or other independent radio or independent analysis, that's where you're going to get your journalism. The rest of it's crap.
Right.
Straight up.
I mean, listen, let's go on a little bit. Unless I missed it, and any of you good people out there could correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't hear Wallace ask Biden to condemn Antifa or BLM. Did you?
Actually, he said Antifa was an idea.
Right, Antifa. So he pulled the Jerry Nadler. Jerry Nadler called Antifa a myth, and Joe Biden calls Antifa an idea. Either way, Chris, what?
Andy Nago got hit in the head with a battery from an idea.
From an idea.
That's what I thought when
Yeah.
he said that. I said to myself, "Oh my, that's
He
classic."
got a brain injury. Andy Nago, okay, got a brain injury because of Antifa. I don't think he thinks they're an idea. But here's the point: Chris Wallace didn't pin Joe Biden on that and say, "Do you condemn BLM? Do you condemn Antifa? Or at least at the very least, do you condemn what they're doing?" Even if you want to say it like that. But what did he ask Donald Trump? Will you condemn will you condemn white supremacists? Excuse me? Where the F are the white supremacists in America? We're going to talk about one who's basically just on the fringes of the fringe, okay? The only reason his name comes up is because the left always wants to bring us there. Where are the white supremacists? I turn on the TV, and when I look at Minneapolis and Seattle and the rest of these cities, I see Antifa and BLM. That's why I said, where are the white supremacists, okay? Because they don't like us much either. Doesn't matter they're skin away. We're Catholic. These guys are really out there. So we'd be on their hate list too. Where are the white supremacists? If I was Trump, I would say, I would have said just that. I turn on the TV, I see BLM and Antifa. If there's white supremacists out there, good. I'll stick Bill Barr on them too. So that was a BS question, if you ask me. But particularly because he didn't ask Biden the same question on the other side.
That's very true.
All right, and we're going to get into it as far as I said, the other side.
But why didn't he say, "Do you condemn the BLM violence"? How's that for a question?
That would have been a really good one.
That's a good question.
He would actually.
I think that's valid.
He could have given.
Because there has been BLM violence. I'm not saying everyone in BLM is violent, as in the movement, but there has been. It's undeniable. I mean, anyone who has eyes that watches television, why not ask that question?
Right.
Mr. Wallace didn't do it because you're bogus. Utterly and absolutely bogus.
That's the word I was looking for, but it didn't come to my head. So Joe, as usual, beat me to the punch. Here's another great question. Okay. There's 3 people, by the way, in Biden rallies. There's him, his wife, and then there might be like, okay, so maybe there's 13 people in his rallies, okay? And him, his wife, and about 10 people scattered throughout, let's say, a particular area. And Donald Trump's got 20,000 people. Now, don't worry, the left is right now wishing, because Donald Trump's got COVID-19, they're wishing him death, and they're saying, well, it's because of the rallies. All right. But again, Chris Wallace has to make it seem like implicit in the question is that Joe Biden is doing things the right way. He wears a mask. He doesn't have these big rallies like you do. So what does he ask Donald Trump? Why are you holding big rallies?
Well, he's trying to paint the COVID thing. I mean, it was, like I said, it was bogus. But frankly, like I said, Wallace, if he had any credibility, I think he hurt his career. And at the end of the day, I expected it. Wait to the other two. This is supposedly the conservative outlet. Fox.
Well, we'll see if there's going to be another two, and we'll get into it because they might not agree to it. And then, but yeah, so it's like, why are you holding big rallies? So that, again, implicit is that Biden's doing it the right way, and you're being a brazen moron. That's pretty much what Chris Wallace was saying. Do you believe in an unequal justice system for blacks? You know what Trump should have answered? He should have said, yeah, I think blacks have been treated very poorly, and I've actually done something about it. Unlike Joe Biden and Barack Obama, I've actually done something about it. Oh, and by the way, Alice Johnson's sitting right over there. That's what he should have done. You know what I'm trying to say?
Well,
And I think Alice Johnson was there.
There were many missed opportunities.
They were they missed or were they taken away from him?
Some, I think, but some, at the end of the day, again, Wallace is not going to throw Trump a softball. And the other two, I expect the same type of questioning. This is American journalism. Journalism is the propaganda arm of the DNC. Sorry. And if you doubted that before this debate, this affirms it, because this is Fox News. They don't want abortion legal either, people. Republicans also participate.
You mean they don't want abortion to be outlawed? To be outlawed. Right.
They don't want it to be outlawed.
Right.
Because they participate in recreational sex too. And that's what abortion is about. The Republicans are no better. They're not abolitionists. And believe me, while most of them, it was convenient for them to support it, nobody, abortion that is, nobody, and I mean nobody, has been more pro-life than Donald Trump.
That's right.
Ever since Roe v. Wade.
Mm-hmm.
What have the Republicans done for the life agenda? What? And now that you're actually threatening it by putting a person like Amy Coney Barrett on the court, and it could be a conservative court, they're balking too.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think that they want that conservative court. I kind of feel when I would watch interviews, you get a sense of people. They're balking because, again, they participate in this behavior that created abortion. Abortion isn't just for Democrats. It's for Republicans, too. And until you basically resolve the fact that recreational sex and sex outside of marriage is not something that is good for society, that it wounds people, and that it destroys families, and it destroys women who have abortions, another inconvenient truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mess, and that belongs to both the Republicans and the Democrats. That's one of the things that separates Trump.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't want him. We don't want him. Wallace is no better.
Right.
Absolutely no better. He goes to those parties. He belongs to that country club.
Yep. That's like Dan saying in the comment box, Wallace just made sure he'd get invited to those parties. That's all he cares about. And here's the thing, too, about Chris Wallace. He knows better. People like Candy Crowley and people like that, I don't think they know better. I think I think they're moronic people. Chris Wallace knows better. He's got the information. Here's another question he asked. Do you believe in climate change? If I was Donald Trump, I would have said, do you think that there's a climate change debate in the world among scientists? Because there is. So if I say it's a hoax and Joe says it's a hoax, okay, it doesn't matter. It's what the scientists say. But the problem is the scientists that think that climate change is a hoax or think that man-made climate change is not really affecting global warming at all, okay, or the temperatures of the earth, those people are shut down. They don't get any money, okay? They certainly don't get any prestige, but nonetheless, they're scientists, and they say, this stuff is nonsense, man. This climate science, this stuff is nonsense. And my point is that Chris Wallace knows that. But what did he do? He's in the tank. That's the whole point of going through these questions and talking about Chris Wallace. He knows there's a major debate on climate change. He tried to pigeonhole Donald Trump by saying, do you believe in climate change? So that the impression would be, oh, Donald Trump must be anti-science if he doesn't believe in climate change. Again, I'm speaking more not to the substance, but to Chris Wallace and the intention of his question.
Oh, garbage. And
okay,
also,
it was garbage. It was a garbage question.
But that crowd, the environment is their god. That's the whole thing. That's how they basically justify their bad behavior.
Mother Earth.
Oh,
Mother Earth.
Go take care of the dolphins.
Right.
Meanwhile, they're killing a child in the third trimester.
But don't kill a dolphin.
Don't cut down the trees. Meanwhile, a woman who has her third abortion is a basket case and commits suicide, or is a drug addict, or is an alcoholic, or is incapable of sustaining a relationship, all of which are side effects of abortion. Look it up. They don't care about that. They don't. No. They don't. They care as long as it's not their daughter or their wife. And that's what I'm saying. You see, it's all superficial crap. In plain English, we have all these things going on, and you're going to ask Donald Trump, do you believe in climate change? Why didn't he ask him if he believed in the good witch?
Right. Or why didn't he, at least if he was going to do that? Again, we're speaking about Wallace's bias at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello, live 8 o'clock on social media. 8 o'clock on social media on Sunday nights. Please follow us on Facebook, like, subscribe, and share, and hit the little bell on YouTube. We're talking about Chris Wallace and his bias. Okay, if he's going to ask Donald Trump that question, why did he not turn around to Joe Biden and say, the Green New Deal is going to cost $93 trillion over 10 years, Vice President Biden? That's what AOC says. And you said that she's going to be part of your administration. Are you for that?
Well, he did.
Why didn't he do that?
He did question the economic viability of the Green
But he wasn't specific. He wasn't specific the way AOC and the rest of them are, is my point. If you think of yourself as a hard-hitting journalist, that's what we're told. Guys like us, that's what we're told. Chris Wallace, he's a hard-hitting journalist. He goes for the facts. He asks precise questions. That was a softball. He should have said the words, $93 trillion. And let that sit with Pennsylvania and Ohio and Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota for a little bit.
He also said that Harris co-sponsored the Green New Deal, and it's on her website. You see, that's other things he didn't touch on. She's a part of that, and that's who you chose as your VP. It's on your website. You see, once again, I actually think, though, he won on that point. I think Trump articulated that very well, that it's not feasible. I think he also won on the fires in California.
Oh, yeah.
I think he knocked that ball out of the park. Biden looked like a deer in the headlights when he threw that out there.
Especially since Trump's throwing into the middle of that. Oh, listen, Gavin Newsom says I did a really good job with that before you start blaming me for it. Which they couldn't handle that
I mean,
either.
like, the Green New Deal's a loser for that crowd. And I think when he tried to distance himself from that hurts him. You see, that's why, again, what Joe is saying is if there is 2 more debates, a lot of the Democratic pundits don't want him to debate because he is in a lose-lose situation on a lot of topics. Topics of substance, another topic that he lost during the debate. Name me one law enforcement agency that is supporting you. No, name me one.
You could have heard a pin drop at that point.
That was a loser.
Right.
And believe me, that's an issue that transcends politics.
Is that the point where Biden, the only thing he found to say was, shut up, man.
Possible.
I think that's all he was left with. I mean, no, there was a palpable silence at that point. No, because Biden obviously couldn't answer that question and say, okay, take the most radical police force in the country. Oh, they're supporting
Portland.
He couldn't even say one, and Trump knew the answer. That's why he asked it. So when anybody thinks Trump is done, show me one law enforcement agency that supported you. Here's another one that bothered me beyond belief, and everybody at this show knows why this bothers us. Here was Wallace. Oh, we'll come back to Roe versus Wade. He gave Biden a complete pass on the fact, if I were you, I'd tune in tomorrow to the Crusade channel where Joe and I are going to go over the evolution of Joe Biden's abortion position, but he let Biden get away with going extremely to the left, where Trump would have eaten his lunch on that one. And said, you support abortion right up till the moment of birth, okay? And Biden wouldn't have been able to say anything. What did Chris Wallace turn around and say? We'll come back to Roe versus Wade.
Well,
that was BS. We call BS on that.
That's a loser for them. And again, that's something they gloss over. They also know it's disgusting. But at the end of the day, they want abortion. This country is far, far from God. Our country, you see, and we've talked about this, Joe and I, on other shows. I mean, Trump is not saving this country. Trump cannot cure the cancer that is in this country. And that's sort of what we discussed when we started this conversation from Dan Turner in the Federalist. This runs very deep. We're at a crossroad right now. We can't even talk to one another. The Democratic senators will not even meet Amy Coney Barrett, a mother of 7.
Right.
Even if you don't like her politics, quote unquote, you don't want to meet her.
Right.
You don't want to shake her hand.
Because they don't want to legitimize her.
But that's the problem.
Right, sure.
You see, this is where we're at. It's very similar, because I've done a lot of reading, obviously when we prepare for the show. Like in 1860 with the Civil War, it was debated. Slavery, that is, debated. There was no more talk. After the election of Lincoln, there was nothing more to say. This is where we're kind of at now. I'm not saying that there's going to be a civil war, but there is a great divide in this country. There's nothing more to say. People have dug their heels in, and it has nothing to do with their heels. It has everything to do with their heart. And Donald Trump isn't going to solve that. All Donald Trump's going to do, I got news for you, my good friends, is even if he wins 4 more years, he's going to buy us 2 decades with judges. The problem is still there. The rot of this country is still here, and it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere until we address it. How that gets addressed, I frankly don't know.
I think that that's going to be a movement in the culture, which all us good people should really try to spearhead, okay, and try to change the culture. But right now, the reason why you have Maxine Waters and people like her in the House of Representatives is because of our swampish culture, and other Democrats, and throw a bunch of Republicans in there too. Okay, because as I think it was Michael said in the chat room, Republicans, they only pay lip service to to the pro-life movement only around election time. They don't do anything about it. They never did anything about it. Okay, it's at least like Father Imperato says, you have to vote for them to hope they'll do something about it, because at least in their platform, the Republicans say they're pro-life. But ultimately, it's going to come from the culture. Our politics has gotten to this point after 50 years of the hippie sexual revolution of the 1960s. When you say that, people think you're crazy. But bottom line is this: it's demonstrable and it's true. That began this downward spiral in this country to the point where we are now. You think that, when we talk about it all the time, Joe and I, you think that Portland and Minneapolis and Seattle and all these places that are burning down, you think they're burning down because Donald Trump wants to cut taxes or build a border wall or negotiate trade deals with China and Canada and Mexico? They're burning down cities because they want to keep baby killing legal. That's it. And Trump has the opportunity here in the last 4 years to put not only Supreme Court nominees up, and this will be his third, but what is it now? 280 judges across the federal judiciary that will put the brakes on Roe versus Wade. And possibly, if you got some natural law judges over the next generation, they will finally declare human right or human life is protected from the moment of conception. Okay, but they're burning down cities because of abortion. Make no mistake about it. That's what this all comes down to. So if you really wanted to change things, as Joe was saying, it's got to start with the culture. It's really what it's got to start with. Start with the culture. I wanted to mention one more question because, like, to me, this showed the ridiculousness of Chris Wallace, and then we'll move on. Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income tax in 2016 and 2017? What?
Is he his campaign? I think he was campaigning for Biden.
Right. Like really? That's the best you could do is Donald Trump's tax. Here's my thing. Let's say Donald Trump did pay only $750 in tax. I don't know if he did or he didn't. If he did something wrong in his taxes, because we know what the Democrats are capable of, Donald Trump would be in an orange jumpsuit. So what does that tell me? Maybe he did pay low tax. Maybe he paid no taxes, but he paid. But whatever he did was legal, and I think Trump did point that out.
But people don't want to hear that. You see, that's, to be truthful with you, that's what Biden was trying to do, is paint Trump as, I'm a billionaire and you don't know what the guy on Main Street's all about. And he said that a couple times, like, you've never been on Main Street. That's basically the line. But here's the line I would throw out. Joe and I recently this week, we went down to Biden's house to protest his position on abortion. Joe Biden lives in Wilmington, Delaware, and probably my guess, I'm going to throw a guesstimate, I was in front of his house. $2 million house. You can't even see the house. We saw it on Google Maps.
We saw a bunch of Secret Service people there.
It's on a lake. A big Secret Service hut in front of it, and then there's a long, road going in. I'm going to throw a rough estimate. Maybe that house, $2 million. He also has a vacation home in Rehoboth Beach. I was told that cost $3 million. Joe Biden never had a job. Joe Biden has been in government since he's 27 years old. My question in that debate would have been this: Joe, where did you get the money to buy $5 million worth of property?
Senators don't make that kind of money.
Don't make that type of money.
They'll say Jill made it. She's a doctor,
She's
Joe.
she's not even. What is she a doctor of?
Joe, I know.
No,
I'm
but I mean, like, no, but
said.
but you know, like that's my point. Like she's not a medical doctor. She has a PhD. PhDs make less money in some respects than friggin' cops in towns in New Jersey. So where did you get the money? And this is what I'm saying. Like this is where, and people gloss right over this. I can remember, and I want to make a couple more points on something that Nolte, one of our favorite authors or journalists, had to say about this debate. But like I can remember when Obama was purchasing his property and I was having a discussion with someone. I'm like, the guy just bought a $40 million house in Martha's Vineyard and he spent about $9,000 million on a house in DC. Good for him. Good for him.
Where did he get the money?
Where did he get the money? How much, do you know how much money it costs even to maintain a $40 million property? Just to maintain it. Electric, air condition, taxes, landscaping. You know, Barack Obama's not out there with a lawnmower, and it doesn't cost $50 to get the lawn cut. Right. When you got hedges and flowers, it's probably like $5,000 a month. Just to have your landscaping done. Where does he get the money? He gets the money by abusing the system. Joe Biden abused the system. He has $5 million worth of property.
But then they want to question Donald Trump on whether he paid enough in taxes. Here's the point: did he file his taxes legally or not? That's the only question you have to answer. And if the answer is yes, Joe, you have to go look at you and your party because you are responsible for that tax code. You can't blame any of us for trying to save on taxes. I don't want to pay taxes. I'm going to do whatever I legally can to pay them as low a tax as I can. And I don't care if somebody pays taxes more than me, okay, if they make less money. Okay, I don't. I'm going to use the law to my advantage, whatever the law is. And Donald Trump did just that. Okay, you can't even say, even if he paid zero income tax, and I don't know if he did or he didn't, even if he paid zero, you can't even go far as to say what he did was unethical. Because again, he followed the law. He told his accountants, whatever the law is, that's what you do.
Well, here's another angle on it. Joe, you've been in politics for 47 years. If the law is corrupt, what did you do about it? If you care so much about equality, about the person on Main Street, what did you do about it to change it? To make the law fair for the guy on Main Street versus the guy on Park Avenue? You clearly didn't do that. So once again, that's a moot point. It's a moot point because, first of all, he didn't pay $750. I highly doubt that. And whatever he paid, it was according to the law. And if the law is corrupt, my question to you then, Joe Biden, is what did you do in 47 years? I was in the private sector working and making money. You bought $5 million worth of property on graft. That's what you did. I don't. Well, let me not say that. I don't know how he got it. So why I say I don't know how, I want to know how, Joe. You tell me. But everyone's okay with that.
Right.
Everyone's okay with that. Wallace is okay with that because they all belong to the same club. It's the same I'm a rich white guy club. And they pretend like they want equality. It's I went to an Ivy League school, I'm a rich white guy. And basically, I like to keep it that way.
That's it. So, all right. So you're at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Arsenello. Eddie's with us. Hey, Eddie, what's happening? He said true patriots should be concerned about how politicians become millionaires and how a business tycoon amasses wealth. I'll tell you one business tycoon they never go after or question his wealth. That's George Soros. But if you say that on Fox News, you get cut off. Thanks for joining us, Eddie. We love you to death. Facebook user, didn't have a name here, did say that the end of the New York Times article, I read this too, was that Trump paid $5 million as down payment for current and future tax liabilities. So if he did pay $750, he said, here's $5 million moving forward. You could put that towards my future tax bill. Joe's with us. Joe Campo from Brooklyn. What's happening, Joe? The law bill was passed by Joe Biden. Of course it was, Joe Campo. You know that, and we all know that. Anna's here. The Bidens made $15 million since his vice presidency ended. I'm telling you, Anna, we should all go into politics. We'll change the entire government and we'll get rich in the process. So yeah, and Herminia is joining us. Biden is not a billionaire. Where did the money come from?
Good question.
Hold on. Ready, Herminia? China. So you're at the front line with Joe and Joe. So look, I think I'm going to speak for most of our audience. I would say that we're Christians. Probably predominantly Catholics, okay? and hence the title of our show. The Christian persecution is coming, man. It's coming. And if anybody doesn't see the handwriting on the wall, you really need to open your eyes. Jesus said, he who has eyes to see, let him see. Who has ears to hear, let him hear. Okay? They are coming for us. They won't care if you call yourself a liberal Catholic or a conservative Catholic. They won't care if you're traditionalist or Orthodox. They won't care if you're evangelical or Anglican. If you profess to believe and bend your knee to Jesus Christ rather than the power of the state, the power of the government, we're in trouble, man. Would you agree?
Well, yeah. I mean, particularly in this segment, I think is very powerful. It centers mostly around the Equality Act.
Yeah.
The Equality Act, which was recently passed, and we have a number of folks that spoke about it. You have Judge Alito, you have the U.S. Catholic bishops. Not to be honest with you, I think that they don't carry the weight that they used to in the country, but they do make some good points.
In this one, they make some good points. This, basically, I got pulled this together primarily from an article from Robert Marshall and LifeSite News. By the way, anybody out there, not just Catholic, any person of goodwill, if you want to keep up on more of the cultural stuff that's going on, LifeSite News is a must-read. Okay, and John Henry Weston runs LifeSite News. You get all the things that are of value to us. Okay, especially when we're talking about the culture, when we're talking about abortion, when we're talking about the rainbow agenda that's getting rammed down our throats, and more importantly, most dangerously, our children's throats. So Marshall says he lays out exactly how dangerous a clean sweep of the presidency, House, and Senate would be for all of us. So I want to read just a little thing, and then I want to start a discussion with Joe, and then we have some other things that we want to let you know about. So a November 2020 election producing Democrat majorities in the House, Senate, and Joe Biden winning the presidency will place Christian institutions which abide by the moral teachings of Moses and or Jesus of Nazareth in peril. That's another way of saying Jews and Christians, okay? In all likelihood, such religious institutions would incur severe penalties, at the very least, loss of their tax exemption, unless they participate in, collaborate with, and support the LGBTQ plus human rights campaign and the child killing business of Planned Parenthood. So let's begin the conversation. Joe mentioned the Equality Act. We'll break that down real quick. Now, when we say SOGI, just so you know, that is the sexual orientation and gender initiatives that they're proposing. So
in the Equality Act.
In the Equality Act. So when we're talking about the Equality Act, I mean, it's just it's a never-ending list. All right, Joe, did you want to?
Yeah, I just want to say,
Joe wanted to start that.
This is. Let me tell you what Justice Samuel Alito had to say. He said the court has essentially taken the Equality Act provisions on employment discrimination and issued it under the guise of statutory interpretation. The major attempts to reassure those who oppose same-sex marriage that their rights of conscience will be protected. I assume that those who cling to old beliefs will be able to whisper their thoughts in the recesses of their homes. But if they repeat those views in public, they will risk being labeled as bigots and treated as such by the government, employers, and schools. This is the Chief Justice of the United States saying that this is what would happen if this passed. By the way, it is happening.
Associate.
But he's
on the Supreme Court, and Samuel Alito is one of the heavyweights. Sorry, he is. All right, absolutely. He's not. Elena Kagan is a lightweight. Breyer is a light. Nobody looks to Breyer for his decisions. Alito they listen to. Claudine's in the comment box. She said what Joe just said. Is it coming? It's already started. Here's the thing, Claudine. What Robert Marshall is talking about is a clean sweep. You're right. You're right. It has started because you're dealing with children who are impatient. Okay, they've taken what used to be in the closet, and now they basically have made it well known what they want. And they're trying to ram it forward. He's talking about a clean sweep. Right now, obviously, we don't have that. We have the Senate. We have the presidency. Here's the thing, as just a little bit of a silver lining, even if that happened before we move forward. The silver lining is this: Amy Coney Barrett gets on the Supreme Court, a fifth. Unfortunately, it's not sixth because of disgracia John Roberts, okay? But a fifth conservative vote on the Supreme Court, okay, that will help us if, in fact, there was a clean sweep. And just like Obama, just like we said, 6 months ago, Obama had the worst record with the Supreme Court, and that wasn't a conservative Supreme Court. So can you imagine if there's a conservative Supreme Court and this crowd tries to ram some of this stuff through? But we still, nonetheless, that's just a silver lining. If you think you're not going to have to go through it on the local level, like somebody mentioned earlier about having to deal with a lot of this stuff locally, we're going to be getting our asses handed to us.
Well, let me just break down the Equality Act a little bit, because people probably, I think on the surface, when you hear the Equality Act, you may even think it's a good thing. Let's talk about what it does. The Equality Act puts at risk the First Amendment freedoms of speech, association of conscience, and religious exercise. It would remove women and girls from protected legal existence.
That's a big one.
It would force healthcare professionals to perform certain treatments and procedures associated with gender transition against their best medical or ethical judgment with respect to a patient. It contains no firm criteria for gender identity, which creates a path for potential emotional and physical harm against individuals, particularly in highly personal sex-segregated spaces such as restrooms and locker rooms.
Now, before Joe continues, I just want to remind everybody, I just want to remind you all, this bill, this Equality Act, passed the Democrat-run House, but obviously, and again, we're talking about the dangers of a clean sweep, it certainly has been stalled in the Senate. And real quick, Joe and I were talking before the show. Donald's in the chat room. Donald, we were talking before the show. Exactly right. Governor Murphy is competing now with Gavin Newsom and disgraziad Andrew Cuomo. He's pushing the same abortion legislation as Cuomo passed in New York, which will go into effect if, in fact, Roe versus Wade is overturned, which means New Jersey will be an abortion-on-demand state. But the only upside to that is then we could start our pro-life efforts on the local level, all right, and try to defeat these things at a local level. But nonetheless, Murphy wants to do the same thing. So anyway, but I did want to let you know that, yes, the Democrats already passed the Equality Act. So this is not whether or not they're willing to pass it. We know they are. They've had a Republican Senate that stood in their way.
It would force charitable services to either violate the principles or shut down. Shelters would be required to house vulnerable, sometimes traumatized women with biological men. Foster care and abortion and adoption agencies would be expected to place children with same-sex partners regardless of some birth mother's wishes and children's best interests. These are the realities of this act. And someone said in the chat room, how do we fight this? We fight this by putting Trump in office so he could put natural law judges on the bench.
Right.
You see, all Trump, this is what the election is about. It's about judges. I've been saying this for 4 years. It's about judges, because then when they do this, you go to a court where you don't have some woke activist who's sitting on the bench who will go along with it.
Right.
They will say, wrong, go back to whatever crazy land you live in.
Right.
That's how you fight against
Start telling these people you're detached from reality.
This is how you fight against all of this, is by putting people on the court who believe in the Constitution, who believe in freedom of speech, who believe in freedom of religion, who believe in our Second Amendment rights, who believe in the document itself. That's how you fight against this. And by the way, all it does is buy us time.
That's it.
You see, ultimately, we have to fix our own hearts as a country. Claudine said in the chat room, we've lost our North Star. Yes, the North Star is God. We've lost it. That's not going to cure the country. That has to be, I'm going to tell you how you do that, by giving a good example. Saints are the only people that change the world, people. I've said this on show after show after show. It's example. It's example. Words do not change people. Man listens to what he sees, not what he hears. You have to change yourself. I have to change myself, and people have to see the fruit of my good behavior, and then they will start to change for themselves. But in the meantime, we need to put good judges on the court. And Donald Trump has done that. And that's why, if you don't like him, and frankly, I'm going to be honest with you, Donald Trump is a very flawed person. Let's be real. He is. He's a flawed man. That is the only, well, there's other reasons I have, but that is the driving reason why I vote for Donald Trump. Every Christian, if you take your faith seriously, should want constitutionalists on the court. Every single one. Why? Because one of our rights is freedom of religion. And they are stepping closer to taking them away. Oh, no, 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 no. You can have your religion, just as Samuel Alito said, but only at your kitchen table.
Right.
Don't you dare say that marriage is between a man and a woman in my company, because I will fire you. That is reality.
Right.
And if you have a good judge on the bench, I could say that's wrong because I'm a Catholic and that's what I believe. By the way, so do Jews, so do Muslims, and I'm suing you. You put bad judges on the court, guess what happens? They say, wrong, Joe.
They say you
lose.
They'll say you've given up your right to free speech because what you're speaking is hate speech. Get it?
So that's why.
That's how the liberals. That's how they twist things. Go ahead, Joe.
That's why you vote for Donald Trump.
Right.
Not even if you dislike him. If you believe in Christ, don't you want freedom to express your religion? Don't you? Even if you're an evangelical, you're a Methodist, you're a Baptist, you're a Protestant of any denomination, you are a Buddhist.
Right.
You see, that's why you want judges, and that's what you do.
Right.
You see, that's how you fight in the short term. In the long term, you purify yourself. How do you do that as a Catholic? You live a sacramental life. You follow the tenets of the church. Don't look at your brother, look at yourself. Don't tell me what this one's doing and that one's doing. It begins with you. It begins with me. Set an example. That's how you change the culture. Love your wife. Stay married. Take care of your kids. How's that for a start?
Boy, you are countercultural.
I mean, like, come on.
Lisa's in the chat room. Hi, Lisa. How you doing? She said all of the legal protections and progress that women have worked for is being erased because a man decides they feel like a woman. Absolutely, we've said it before. How is this coalition that they've hobbled together going to stay in place if they do get any kind of real power? Because guess what? Feminists and the LGBT crowd or the transgender crowd, they're going to have major problems. Because the feminists say, no, girls don't have to compete with boys who believe they're girls. They can have their own right, and they're trying to protect girls. And the trans crowd is saying, no, those boys who believe they're girls, they ought to be able to have the right to run in those races against biological girls. And they're going to have a big fight on their hands. But like you said, they want to erase the very idea of man and woman. That's absolutely true. And as then you followed up with your comment, he created them male and female. Yeah, that'll make their brains explode when you try to talk like that. Ann's with us. Ann made a very good point because we were talking about if this stuff goes through. So it's difficult to find Board of Education meeting minutes, right, because they keep them hidden. They keep them secret. And unless you have a child bringing material home, you can't find out what the diversity curriculum is taught in the grade school. Absolutely right, and we've covered this before. When the parents go to the school to have a meeting with the teacher, and the child who the teacher swears is confused, and if it's a boy thinks he's really a girl, won't act that way in front of the parents. Why? Because they don't want to let the parents know what it is they're doing in that school that those very parents are paying for. So this is part of what's going on, and we're going to continue. We're not going anywhere right now. There's more to this story, okay? Jawal's with us. Ron. Hey, Rita, what's happening? And Herminia is with us. So real quick, so the Heritage Foundation chimed in on this too.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Heritage Foundation is a reliable source.
Absolutely.
Okay. If they're gonna give an analysis of something, particularly something like the Equality Act, they're gonna break it down. They're gonna break it down truthfully. So here's a couple points from the Heritage. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but here's from the Heritage Foundation. Says that the SOGI provisions in the Equality Act would empower the federal government to impose punishments on citizens who dissent from SOGI ideology. I think Joe Resinello just said that. Including medical professionals, parents, women and girls, businesses. Here's another one. Creative professionals who understand that humans are born male or female and who believe that marriage means a union between one man and one woman could be compelled to use their artistic gifts to create custom goods and services for events that violate their consciences, such as same-sex celebrations and same-sex marriages. We already know that. The baker, right? Baronel Stutzman, all right?
Sure.
The pizzeria owners in Indiana who were targeted. You don't just go find a pizzeria in Republicanville, northern Indiana, which is primarily Catholic. Southern Indiana, Protestant. Northern Indiana, Catholic. Okay. You don't just find a pizzeria owner because, oh, they wouldn't cater my same-sex wedding. No, they were targeted. They were targeted by the people that push nonsense like this Equality Act. Okay. And here's what Joe also was just talking about. Employees and employers could be compelled to use preferred pronouns. By the way, do you know if you don't use a preferred pronoun, that's called misgendering.
In New York, I think you're fined an extraordinary amount of money.
You're fined in New York, and according to that one man who thinks he's a woman at that ridiculous, ludicrous, bizarro world town hall that they had, LGBT town hall, okay, where the man who thought that he's a woman said to Kamala, I think it was Kamala that he was addressing, he said, you just misgendered me. That's an act of violence. Now, people think that we are crazy. You know why we're crazy, Resinello? Because we listen to what they say. Remember something, when they say that if you misgender, and that was the quote I was reading, let me very quickly before I get into this. People would be forced by law to refer to a man as she, or a woman as he, or a person as they, or ze, or fey, or anything else someone desires. So you understand. But now remember, at this bizarro world, CNN, Democrat, town hall, LGBT whatever meeting, okay, this person said that the act of misgendering is an act of violence. How do you confront violence? Let's say in normal, I'm not saying as a Christian, if somebody punches you in the face, in defense of yourself, don't you punch them in the face? If you define violence as a word that somebody's using, doesn't that get, if they say that I'm committing a violent act against them by calling a person he, because it's obviously a man,
well, violence means the law will act against you.
The law will act against me, or as we're seeing now with BLM and Antifa, or they will act against you. What I'm saying is that they're trying to give themselves, they know that all you're doing is calling them he because it's a he. But they want to make that an act of violence so that they could react with true violence against you. Do you see where the Marxists go with this stuff? By manipulating language, they will justify under the law putting a baseball bat over your head and going in front of a judge and saying, well, I identify as a woman and that man called me he. And that's an act of violence. So I hit him over the head with a bat. And if you have a wacko ACLU or SPLC judge, they'll say, you know what? I agree with you, he, she, they, z, whatever your name is. I agree with you. Okay? And you who got the baseball bat over your head, you have no recourse in my court. Case dismissed. That's what they would do. That's what they would do. That's why this stuff is dangerous.
People, it's about judges. The Trump presidency for every Christian, for every Jew, and for every Muslim comes down to one thing: judges. If you don't support him in this and you take your faith seriously, then shame on you, because they're coming for you.
Oh, because
they are there. And I'm going to tell you this right now, and the things we're talking about are very real. How's this sound? You go to med school, and they make you perform an abortion in the med school to get your diploma.
And if you don't, you don't graduate.
So they now control another profession. That's real. You see, this is what I'm talking about. But yet, it glosses it. Everyone just glosses it. I hate Donald Trump. I hate Donald Trump. I'm not voting for him. Mm-hmm. I just hate him. He's just disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, either you don't take your religion seriously, because all these things are real. This is real.
Right.
There have been adoption agencies. The state of Massachusetts, for instance, has shut down Catholic adoption because they tried to force them to give children to same-sex couples, and they said no. So they shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
What if they say a hospital, a Catholic hospital, and there are many of them in the United States, has to perform these services, and they say no? Guess what's going to happen? They're going to shut down. They're going to shut down. So this is, again, people, I'm not making this crap up.
Right.
This is real time, real. It's real.
That's right.
Or you don't care. You see, that's another thing. But you will eventually care. because you cannot build society on this. I'm telling you this right now. Even if they win, I'm going to tell you this. The Soviet Union did not last for 100 years. 90 years, it collapsed. It imploded. You cannot have a sustainable culture with these ideas. Sorry. Whether it lasts 50 years, 80 years, but in the meantime, we will suffer like dogs. Maybe that's what we need. Maybe that's what God is going to use to change the hearts of the American men and women. Maybe that's what we need. Because I'll tell you this, Donald Trump isn't fixing it. And I'm going to tell you this, the cancer runs real deep in America. We don't even have 50% of the people who have families stay together because they don't think it's important. Why do you think these kids have blue hair and they're doing drugs and they're all on medication?
And they're joining Antifa.
Because they're wounded.
Right.
Those kids are wounded kids. Kids that come from healthy homes don't do that. Whether they're rich or poor. I got news for you. If you look at it, if you want to break it down, our society is crumbling. People, help, black or white, doesn't matter, rich or poor. Kids that come from healthy homes don't do that. It's our society. It's a rot that's in the society.
Well, that's what they've tried. That's what they've been mostly wildly successful in doing in the last 50 years. Yes, since the hippie sexual revolution in the 1960s, is creating these very type of people. Okay? If you're a husband and a father and you're sexually liberated and you think you're just going to go out and just bang everything in sight, okay, and eventually your wife finds out and you get a divorce and say, that's the way I am. I'm sexually liberated. You're the problem in society. I'm sorry how judgmental
black
that sounds.
or white.
Right, that doesn't really
matter.
Because the kids are going to be messed up.
You're hurting your kids. You see, there's the problem. And yet we all just gloss over it. We all gloss over it.
Yep. And you know what? So let's keep going because the Democrats are not interested, by the way, so you know, in discussing this Equality Act. They're not interested in any accommodation at all. Okay. Now, again, Joe and I don't make statements that we can't back up. This is documented, okay? So I want you to listen to me loud and clear, okay? All U.S. House amendments offered to neuter the Equality Act were defeated. Republican members of the House Judiciary Committee proposed amendments to H.R. 5 that would have exempted, now here, because there's a couple of comments in the chat room, exempted biological females from being forced to compete against biological males in sports. That's a court case that's going on right now, as somebody mentioned, and we mentioned, I think Ann said it. I think Ann's up in Connecticut. That's a case that's going through the court right now, okay? Girls are not allowed to compete with other girls, and the Democrats are not in favor of the girls. Let's face it. Now, eventually, they're going to have to answer to the feminists, but right now, they're not in favor of girls. They will shield healthcare providers from being compelled to affirm, or this was one of the proposals, was meant to shield healthcare providers from being compelled to affirm an individual's subjective sense of gender identity. I don't want to call you a woman if you're not a woman. I don't want to be forced to call you a woman if you're obviously a man. I don't want to. And the law should protect me, Joe.
Of course it should.
The law should protect me. Now, am I going to insult you? If I know your name is really John, okay, but you want to be called Linda, okay, I probably will call you Linda, but I'm not going to treat you as a man. How you name yourself is one thing. How you identify is another. And if you identify as something that is not in sync with reality and biology, I am not under the law going to be forced to have to treat you in that way. I'm not going to.
And here's the thing. If they get their way legally, they could prosecute you. You see, this is what this is talking about. The Equality Act can force this upon you. And if you believe in whatever you believe, whether it's the practice of the Catholic faith, you're evangelical, you're an Orthodox Jew, or you're a practicing Muslim, it doesn't matter because this is the law of the land. You see, this is the danger of this rule.
Right.
Also, it's about power, my friends. If the Democrats win the House, they win the Senate, and Joe Biden becomes the president, I'm going to tell you what they're going to do. They're going to pack the court. Joe Biden did not address that in the debate because that is exactly what they're going to do. They refuse to lose. So they change the rules so they don't. They're going to do away with the filibuster. They're going to make DC and Puerto Rico states, and they're going to gain 4 more senators. They are going to ensure that they have power. Because it's not about the people. This whole election cycle should show you that. It's as clear as day. They are willing to tear the system to the ground in order to win. They've been trying to do that since the very beginning. They did not accept his victory in 2016. And it's just gotten ramped up since.
Right.
They refuse to allow you to win, legitimate or not. And they will formalize their power by what I just said. If you don't believe me, watch.
And if you don't believe how scary they are, okay, I want to tell you very quickly about a scary dude before we end this segment, okay? At the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, Holy Faith Media right now, Arana Nation. God bless you all. Thank you for joining us here. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the little bell on YouTube, do all that fun stuff. So these dudes are scary. There's no question about it, okay? So I got a little ditty for you, okay? This is Delegate Marcus Simon. Gee, here's a shocker. He's a Democrat. And he is in the Virginia State Legislature. And SOGI laws require persecutions, or the persecution of Christians. And Marcus Simon spoke in favor of a state equivalent of the Federal Equality Act. Now, I just want to read his quote. You may cringe at this. I don't know. I don't know. Did you have something to eat before the show?
I didn't read this.
All right.
I'm interested to hear this, actually.
So this is Marcus Simon. Okay. Quote, I've actually looked at the unlimited punitive damages language, and I think it's actually doing exactly what we intended to do, for it to do. If you don't want to be subject to unlimited punitive damages, don't discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. I mean, this wasn't meant to be a non-punitive bill. We created a private right of action for a reason. And so I think the bill accomplishes exactly what it's intended to do. What is it intended to do? Impose unlimited punitive damages on particularly the Catholic Church, but all religious institutions along with it. That's Marcus Simon. He's a politician. He's a leader in Virginia. He's a delegate, okay? He's a Democrat. And as Mike Church would call him, he's a demoncrat. This dude is scary. He says the unlimited punitive damages are exactly what we want to do. If you will go against us. What have I told you a million times? And on this show, in the movie Dr. Zhivago, and the Bolshevik looks at Zhivago because Zhivago's questioning the revolution. And the Bolshevik says, adapt yourself. That's what Delegate Marcus Simon is saying. Adapt yourself, or what? Or you will be crushed. It'll start with money. It always starts with money. But then it'll get violent. These people are effing dangerous. And I'm tired of people trying to convince me that Donald Trump is the dangerous one. These people are dangerous. Because whether you're a Democrat or Republican, and even if you're a woman, even if you're a feminist, if you're a feminist, pro-abortion, I am woman, hear me roar feminist out there, if you go against the transgender ideology, you're in trouble too, Missy.
What about the woman who wrote Harry Potter?
Right, J.K. Rowling.
They went against.
There's no more bigger feminist than her.
And they're trying to crucify.
Right, she's all for transgenderism and all that, but she defends those girls' right to run in a girls' track meet. And she's been outspoken, like Joe said. And guess what? She's under attack now. So don't think it just pertains to a couple of jamokes like us. It doesn't. You must adapt yourself to the revolution. You're not going to be able to dialogue with these people. You're not going to be able to talk to them. Okay? They want what they want when they want it, and you will adapt yourself or you will be crushed. It's that simple.
Let's change gears because this was one of the debate topics that was discussed a lot, actually, saying Trump is basically a white supremacist. I do think, in fairness, he could have clearly articulated his position. He has in the past, in fairness, and we're going to talk about that now. I think he could have been a little bit clearer, but clearly Trump is not a white supremacist, and he has stated that in the past. That is a fact. In fact, I'm going to give you the exact quote. He said, the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups that are repugnant to everything we hold dear as Americans. He is on record in saying that. So I think he could have been a little bit clearer in the debate. He is on record saying that, in fairness. But also, why do we bring this up? A white supremacist who organized the Charlottesville race riots has outwardly endorsed Joe Biden. That's a fact. And this is the interesting thing. I'm going to read you what he said, but his name is Richard Spencer.
He's a well-known white supremacist.
Neo-Nazi. He's a neo-Nazi.
Now, he doesn't walk around with in like, let's say, for argument's sake, in jackboots and with a shaved head or anything. He looks just like a normal guy. All right?
Whole deal.
He is a white supremacist neo-Nazi, very well known and very well known on social media. I want you to listen to what Joe is going to tell you. Go ahead, Joe. I'll just shut up.
A Twitter user asked Spencer if he will be voting for Biden or sitting out the election. This is what Spencer put on Twitter. I plan to vote for Biden and a straight Democratic ticket. It's not based on accelerationism or anything like that. The liberals are clearly more competent people. Now get this.
Now, this is how they're competent. Competent when it comes to what exactly?
Although Spencer claims that his endorsement is about competence and not ideology, his comments from the 2017 Charlottesville riots say otherwise. This is what he said. During his keynote speak in Charlottesville, this is what he said. Spencer explained how abortion advances white nationalist goals.
Please repeat that.
He said abortion advances white nationalist goals, stating, get this, people, this is something the media seems not to touch on, but the white supremacists get it. He said the people who are having abortions are generally often black or Hispanic or from very poor circumstances.
Which is what the racist wants. So guess who he's voting for?
Biden. You see, this is the hysterical part. You have black politicians who support abortion, and abortion attacks black people like nothing ever has. We were at a rally, like I said, at Biden's house, and a gentleman from New Jersey, Reverend Childress, he has an organization. I'm trying to get him on the show. It's called Black Genocide, and he spoke at it, speaking directly to the abortion problem in the black community. This guy, who's a neo-Nazi, is listening, and he likes what he sees.
He doesn't want Roe versus Wade overturned. Richard Spencer, he wants abortion legal in every state. Why? Because he knows black and Hispanics who are disproportionately getting abortions are going to continue to kill their babies. And what does a neo-Nazi white supremacist want? Less black and brown babies. What does Donald Trump want? More black and brown babies.
But Donald's the racist.
Right.
This is the part, people, this is where the devil is at play. He takes the truth and he twists it. You see, this is the truth, what I just said. Abortion attacks the black community like no other community in America. Joe Biden is for abortion.
So is Kamala.
And so is a white supremacist, is for abortion. Therefore, he is supporting Joe Biden. Abortion is a non-negotiable. I'm telling you this, and history is going to prove me right. I'm going to tell you this right now. Just like slavery is a non-negotiable, abortion is a non-negotiable. The reason why we will not let it go as a society is because of the sexual revolution, and sex is an accepted practice outside of marriage. It's even accepted practice even in some marriages where people have sex outside of their spouse. And we will not let it go. And because of that, our society is falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
It is falling apart. This is where we have arrived at. As, what's his name, Turner said it when we began this situation, this discussion. This is who we are as Americans right now. The mess that we saw in the debate is who we are as Americans right now. Our culture is rotten. It's rotten. And until we address that, we don't get anything right.
That's right. So we
Nothing.
might get a little bit of time with Donald Trump getting elected. We're certainly praying for it. We're praying for the defeat of Nancy Pelosi, that the gavel be taken out of her hand. We pray that the American people are going to continue to want better judges, so they're going to keep the Senate in Mitch McConnell's hands. But if we don't do, and if God gives us this 4 years, and we don't do anything to try to change this culture, and yes, no matter how hard it is for people to hear, no matter how much they think you're wacko for saying so, okay, it's not abortion that's the source of our problems. It's not gay marriage that's the source of our problems. It's contraception is the source of our problems. No matter if anybody wants to hear that or not, the contraceptive mentality that was given birth in the 1960s, all right, has caused all of our problems. Go read Humani Vitae by Pope Paul VI, where he predicts all this, the destruction of families, the destruction of society. It's not just some innocuous private act. It has a ripple effect throughout society. It's had a pretty bad ripple effect throughout society. And it's a debate that needs to be had in this country. We're not supposed to keep going down the road that we're on thinking it's just going to change if we get rid of abortion. We have to stop where we are on that road, turn around and go back to the beginning. But the beginning is not what people are going to want to hear. The beginning is we have to go and we have to overturn Griswold versus Connecticut. That is the decision that legalized contraception. Now, that might, for some people, seem a bridge too far, but if you really wanted to know why everything is such a swamp, Joe says it all the time. I say it all the time. The church has been very loud about this. Maybe not our individual bishops, but the church has been very loud about this, okay? This is the cause of nearly all our problems.
Sadly, the horse is out of the barn, and frankly, we are going to suffer as a society. Like, ultimately, honestly, God's hand is on everything, and ultimately a greater good comes out of all bad. But sadly, what you just said, I agree. I've been married 7 years. We don't contracept. I've never contracepted. I have 4 children, and we lost 2. So I actually had 6 children. I trust God. Simple. I trust God. And when you have when you contracept in your marriage, basically what you're telling your wife or your husband is, I love you to a point. I don't love you completely. And basically, when you do come together, you're using each other for sex and pleasure. That's what a contraception mentality does. You're using each other. Love gives, it doesn't take. You see, the horse is out of the barn. To say that even in Catholic circles is crazy. People are listening to my voice and some people are turning the television off right now. But what I am telling you is true. Contraception, it was laid out in Humani Vitae if you've ever read it. And basically what the Pope said is it said, it will cause men to not respect women. It will cause men to go outside of their marriage and have sex because they're protected. All those things came to pass. It will lead to abortion. He said that too, and it came to pass. It will lead to divorce. He said that too, and it came to pass. The family is falling apart as a result of this behavior. But we don't love each other enough to do that. You see, that's another issue. To do that, you must love completely. That's what marriage is. Marriage isn't a word. Marriage isn't having a big reception or going on a fancy honeymoon. Marriage is giving oneself completely. And those people who do have successful marriages, it may not look pretty either. You may not live in a McMansion. You may not drive a Mercedes, and your kids may not go to an Ivy League school. But you have healthy, happy families. And you have people like Judy P., who just put in the chat room that she was married 57 years. God bless you, Judy P., because that's what a marriage is. It's forever. It's forever. And it's to give oneself completely. And to contracept does not do that. Sorry, you're kidding yourself, and America is kidding themselves.
And it always goes back to what you say, too, about sacrifice. Part of it all. See, if we want to get to that point where we could put that horse back in that barn, okay, there are things we could do that will lead up to that. One of them is to start living a little bit more self-sacrificing, in a self-sacrificing way. Lisa's in the chat room. Lisa said contraception. I'm sorry, Lisa. Basically, Lisa, she said she's never contracepted, 5 children, 3 miscarriages. See, that's That's self-sacrificing love.
Basil had four kids, and he has a grandkid. I grew up with them. He's my age at 50. Got married at 19.
They make you seem like that. You know, they make you seem like that the world can't function without condoms and birth control pills.
Because in other words, it's a selfish world, Joe.
No, that's what I'm talking about putting the horse back in the barn. In other words, yes, it's very difficult to convince people that contraception needs to be put back in that barn. Okay, but there are things you could do, like I said, to lay the groundwork for that. And one of them is start living a self-sacrificing life, start living for others outwardly too. Okay, in many ways, not just feeding the poor, getting on podcasts, doing what we're doing. In other words, getting our voice out there, showing, putting some stones on the table, getting some skin in the game. People see that, people react to that. So then when you do say something like we just said, which will not go over well with most Catholics, and certainly not go over well with evangelicals, you know what? If you lay that groundwork, they'll start to take you a little bit more seriously. I promise you that. So what Joe was trying to say was we, and we've been saying this for 2 years now, from our very first show. If you want to change this culture, start by making your bed. I think one of the military guys had given that speech at that time. Start by taking care of your own life, living a personally, as best you could, holy life, okay? And living that way, and people will see that. People will see that, and that's how the culture will gradually start to change. Contraception's part of that, but that's how we'll start to change that. And I think that's all we have to say about that.
I have nothing more to say. I feel like Forrest Gump.
That's all I have to say about that.
Exactly.
All right. So we want to thank you all for being at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossino. I think that was a pretty good conversation.
I do too.
Yeah. So
God took it in a couple of different directions.
Right. And ultimately, like you said, God's in control. So if you think we can't get, not you, but if you think we can't get rid of contraception, remember something. God's in control. So thank you for joining us at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Rosinello. Like we said earlier, please follow us on Facebook. And like our page, share it with your friends. Share this video, please, on Facebook. Also on YouTube. Like, subscribe, share, and do all that fun stuff. Remember to please follow Holy Faith Media. Holy Faith Media, we're on that platform right now. We thank all the Holy Faith Media watchers. Arana Nation up in Canada. We want to thank all you guys for joining us, and thank Michael Arana for letting us use this platform. Jonathan Ross, as always, our producer up in Canada. We want to thank him. And remember, we got to get in the fight. We just got to. We're in the fight. We got to keep pushing the fight. Not be ashamed. Okay. Not be bullied. Keep speaking the truth, because that's what ultimately. It's like the Wicked Witch of the West. That's ultimately, it's like the truth is like the water you throw on the Wicked Witch of the West. At the end, she goes, "I'm melting." That's what you want from the left. You hit them with the truth. It's like, "I'm melting." That's what we want to do. So until next. Oh, and by the way, remember to take a look at Through Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. We think you'll like what you see. And remember that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation, it's going on everywhere. So we'll see you next week.